Today, we are honored to have a truly inspiring guest, Sandhya Nair. Her journey from the streets of Kamathipura, Mumbai's red light district, to becoming the Director of Strategic Alliances at Save the Child Foundation is a powerful story of resilience and dedication. Overcoming immense challenges, she found strength through organizations like Kranti and pursued her passion for advocacy and education. A graduate of the University of Peace with a degree in Gender Studies and a TEDx speaker, Sandhya has devoted her life to empowering women and children. In this conversation, we'll explore her incredible work and her mission to uplift marginalized communities and her latest initiative on social and emotional learning. Welcome to the Changemakers Series, Voices from Save the Child Foundation. I'm Surabhi Khanal, the Creative and Communications Director at Save the Child Foundation, where I use impactful storytelling and meaningful communication to uplift marginalized communities. Sandhya, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. How are you doing this afternoon?
Thank you so much for having me, Surbi. I'm good. How are you? How have you
I'm
been?
doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for making the time for this interview.
Thank
It
you
is
for
lovely
having
here. Okay, so Sandhya, your story of resilience is remarkable and very, very inspiring to all the people who have heard it before or would want to listen to your story. I think they will be super inspired as well. Can you share how your upbringing in Kamathipura shaped your passion for advocacy and empowerment?
I believe growing up in Kamathipura, I've grown up in Kamathipura. My mother was a sex worker, as you were telling my story. I come from Asia's seventh largest red light area. And it definitely shaped my understanding of resilience, injustice, and power of opportunity, to be honest. I have witnessed firsthand how deeply society stigmatized sex workers and their children, making it difficult for us to access education, dignity, and even basic rights. That's an unspoken belief that we are underserving of better future. And I think one of the biggest thing that led me to who I am and where I am today was an incident where I was in school and I was trigger warning. I was raped by my teacher, and I was told while I was being abused for years that I do not belong here and this is not my space and I do not deserve education. And I think from a 10-year-old Sandhya, it has always been about the questioning of who is deciding whether I get education opportunity or not. Who is sitting there and thinking a 10-year-old coming from who's a daughter of a sex worker, we're not going to give her education, we're not going to give her healthcare, we're not going to give her any basic human dignity as well. And we're just going to abuse her, mentally torture her, discriminate her. And who are these people deciding? And I think that question has led me through my lives and where I am today, and why I am dedicated to something that I really want to do is like when in even in STC we believe in the like UN goals of leave no child behind. And I think from a very young age I have also been a part of the system where I do not believe in leaving any child behind in that matter. No matter where you come from, no matter what you do, no matter what your parents are, your parents are, it doesn't define your talent or like dedication towards your passion or something like that. And but my journey took a different path when I got into Kranti. Kranti empowers girls from Mumbai Red Light area and daughters of sex workers to become agents of social change and happiness. Sorry, that's a like whole of a lot, but yeah. So
Yeah.
like through that opportunity, I got access to education, leadership training, and creative platforms like theater, art. And it was through these experiences that I realized how transformating storytelling and emotional healing could be. So I was saying like how advocacy is not just about fighting against oppression, but also creating spaces for people who can reclaim their narratives and build their own future. And my work today, whether in education, gender advocacy, or social emotional learning, it's deeply rooted in this belief. And I want to ensure that no child, regardless of where they are born, has to fight for the right to dream, to learn, and to be seen more than their circumstances. So I think that this dream is not just about this old Sandhya, but it is also a dream of that young Sandhya who just 10-year-old, who's just coming out of Kamathipura, trying to educate herself, a mother trying her best to send this child to get a proper education and change their narratives, but the world creating so much barriers and stigmas and discrimination to stop it makes it like that's what makes Sandhya who is Sandhya today. And I think that's my story I always carry in my heart, why I started this.
Yeah, you put it really beautiful, Sandhya. And I know I've heard this story before, but every time I go through this story, it's like chills in my body, and you own up to this story so beautifully that it inspires each and every one around you.
Oh, thank you so much,
Thank
Surmi. That's
thank
really kind of you to say that.
you. So, as the director of strategic alliances, what are some of the key initiatives you've led at Save the Child Foundation, and how have they impacted the communities that you target?
At Save the Child Foundation, my work has centered around building strategic partnerships that create meaningful and sustainable impact for marginalized communities. I think one of the key initiatives that I've led in our is social emotional learning program for youth in Lusaka, Uganda, in collaboration with the Walk Free Foundation, which has been our partner for past few years. And this initiative allowed children in marginalized communities and schools to develop emotional regulation, critical thinking, and communication skills, equipping them with tools that are often overlooked in traditional education but are essential for their overall well-being and future success. Another initiative that is very close to my heart is also um, the period poverty and reproductive health awareness that we do. We always organize this menstrual health hygiene day program in Uganda with collaboration of different organizations, but we are trying to make a sustainable circle where the kids learn, where the young kids who are in this high school learn from why period poverty, like understanding about period poverty is important, why it is important to be aware of body autonomy for especially for women, and creating these circles where these youth lead more circles out of it. So to make a sustainable circle, instead of me coming into your community and saying, barging in and saying, no, no, this is how it should be, this is how it should be, but more of, okay, I trust my community when they speak to me. So maybe creating circle according to them would create more opportunities for the people to come up with doubts, come up with saying that, hey, I do not understand this because I do not speak their language. I am new to them. So there is a trust, there's a lack of trust that can go. But creating a sustainable circle where these kids go around in the village of Masaka and empower every other woman about their body autonomy makes a huge difference. Talking about HIV/AIDS, when young kids talk about HIV/AIDS, the older people try to open up a little bit, try to understand. So creating more safe spaces in this kind of environment is one of the things that I do, and I enjoy working in that. And additionally, I have also been leading the Art of Dialogue and a Creative Head program, which provides marginalized women with safe space again to express themselves through art and storytelling. This initiative allows women who have faced systematic oppression and trauma to find their voices, share their experiences, and reclaim their identities. Yeah. So this is what I believe when you speak about it, when you tell what you want. We as change makers have a responsibility where we do not barge in into spaces. We should not barge in into spaces and say, you need this, you need this, you need this. Instead,
Yeah,
as change makers, go with the perspective of maybe we should just step back and listen what they need and how we
yeah,
can assist them with that. And I
yeah,
think major focus at Save the Child working as strategic alliance is also to understand where these people come from, take a step back, and maybe try to support around it and not just like shove my idea into there.
yeah. Make it more of a community driven and a bottom up
Yeah.
approach. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. So, how do you think the social and emotional learning initiative can contribute to breaking cycles of poverty, inequality, and especially for children in underserved communities?
Right. So when we talk about poverty, we often focus on financial aspect a lot. But the
Mm,
reality in that poverty is deeply intertwined with emotional deprivation, lack of confidence as well, and a systemic exclusion, right? And social emotional learning plays a very critical role in breaking this circles and cycles because it gives children the tools to navigate challenges, make informed decision, and also build meaningful relationship. For a child growing up in an underserved community, learning to regulate emotions, resolve conflicts, and think critically can mean the difference between dropping out of school and staying engaged, or maybe asking for help. Coming
mm,
from a family of violence, where there is a lot of discrimination they are facing, be it in traditional schools or be it any kind of setting. This helps them to regulate and see that, hey, this is not right. And learning that is very important. It can also means that also differentiating between internalized discrimination and
mm,
microaggression. How can somebody discriminate through microaggression is also identifying it also makes it important to stand up, speak up, ask for help, understand. One of the examples that I would like to give is during my school time when I was abused and when I was this, I hated math because that was something related to my abuse. For a long time, I hated math. I would fail in math, but nobody would ask me, why is it? Why am I scoring good in other subjects and why I'm failing in math? And I was also not able to identify it. But if I was in a safe space, if I was having that desire to see, reflect, and understand, hey, you know what? This is because I'm feeling this, because I get
mm,
scared when I see math, or I get panicked when I see math. And this is what social emotional learning does to a child. Identify it. And when you identify it, that's the first step you do, right? Identify
mm,
that I feel traumatized, I feel scared, I feel hurt. And how this is also a very huge breaking barrier. So SEL also foster resilience, self-efficiency, and leadership, all which is essential to breaking generational cycles of poverty and equality. Because education alone is not enough if children do not believe in their own potential or the lack the skills to navigate the world beyond the classroom.
mm,
I can have all the education I want, but if I'm not healed, if I'm not a better person, how am I gonna bring my family out of this poverty cycle? How am I building opportunities so that there is more way out of it? So SEL ensures that children are not just passive recipients or of knowledge, but active participants in shaping their future. That is why I believe integrating SEL in education, especially in marginalized community, it is not a luxury; it is a necessity.
mm. Yeah. So has there been any session that stood out and has been very close to your heart? There, can you share some of the examples where the kids did something special and it was like you felt really good about taking the initiative?
Yes, there are a lot of them though, but one of that stays very like made me feel like, okay, I'm doing something and I'm able to do something was when one of our kid, she was sitting, she always in this classes would sit hiding and would never like show her face because we do these reading sessions for their English as well. And
Mm,
try to bring them out. And in these all of these reading sessions, she would just hide, like she would never like want to. So we gave them a task one day and said, like, write a letter to your future self about us, telling about where you are today and
mm,
how much they appreciate where they are today because that's what lead them to who they are tomorrow. And
mm,
like, and it is so powerful because this is the first time I ever saw her coming up and saying, I want to read. And I think that had a huge impact on me because somebody who, like, it's being able to have that space. This
mm,
again, this is more of like reading, writing, and still thinking about it. But also, it also speaks about how there is so much less spaces that we create for marginalized communities. We do not open up our spaces for people who are uh, unheard most of the time, there is a reason why people are unheard, because we are not ready to listen, we are not ready to create a space for them, for where they just be like, you know what, or even we do not have that much of patience, to be very fair. Like, the world we live in is so fast paced right now that we do not have, a lot of teachers do not have time to just wait till that kid opens up, you know
Mm.
and there should be more spaces where the kids, where they get that patience that they need. And I think that's one of the most beautiful thing we see. And one of the other example was like how this kid was crying, and we just like, we were like, okay, like, we get scared, right, when kids cry, like it could be triggering, it could be traumatizing, what is it? And that kid just says like, oh, I'm happy to be here. And I have not touched
Oh, so,
in so many
yeah,
years.
the kid was crying because he was happy.
Yeah, just happy to be here, make few friends, because these kids are not set in classroom for years. This kid dropped out from school, like a quite while ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. And when we launched our first SEL classroom in Masaka, with the help of a lot of different schools, we talked to a lot of different schools. Finally, somebody agreed, and then we started this with very small number of kids. We started with 6 kids. We are right now with 30 kids. So we are
Wow,
trying
that's
to,
amazing.
thank
Yeah.
you. And we're trying to get it more expand, and like, so that every child in Masaka, or every child in Africa, for that matter, every child in this world gets this opportunity, and that kid is just crying, like happy tears. And that's what we are here for, right? That's what makes it so beautiful and special,
Yeah,
that,
that you were able to create that space for them.
like,
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
thank
Yeah.
you.
So looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the programs you're leading, and how do you envision scaling their impact globally?
Oh, so my vision is to expand and sustain these initiatives in a way that creates systematic change rather than one-time interventions. For SEL program in Uganda, I want to scale it across more schools, train more local facilitators, and even integrate SEL into national education policies. By working with educators, maybe policymakers and community leaders, we definitely can ensure that SEL not just an add-on, but a core part of how children are educated and supported. Like, for example, even if with the initiative of the art of dialogue, I want to expand it in a different marginalized community across South Asia and Africa and other places in the
Mm.
world, like where adapting it for survivors of conflict, displaced women, and others who could actually benefit from creative healing. You know, More broadly, my aspiration is to build a global network for change makers. To be very honest, together how education, nonprofits, corporate partners to invest in mental health, education, and empowerment. Because the ultimate goal is not just to run programs, but to change narratives, shift policies, and create a long-term sustainable impact. And that is also important, because we do not we should not think from one part intervention, right? Like, yeah, today we did this and that's it. But it should be more of sustainable. How am I empowering these women about their body autonomy, so they go ahead and create more circles of that, talk more about it, and they evolve more about it, you know so, like, ensuring that emotional well-being and important becomes universal rights and not just privileges. That's
Mm.
overall what. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandhya, for sharing your journey and insights with us. It is truly inspiring to see how you're transforming your personal challenges into global opportunities for change. We look forward to seeing the incredible impact you'll continue to make through your work. Thank you so much for making the time and making the interview happen. And thank you for sharing your stories. The kids are very lucky to have you, I
Oh,
must say. Really.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you. Be able to
that
give them that space to feel secure and to be able to express their feelings without having any second thoughts, without hesitation, is something that every kid deserves in this world. And yeah, you're
thank you.
doing your bit. Yeah.
I somebody am who believes that we are lucky enough to be able to do something like this, and I believe that that's what makes a huge difference in our lives as well, that we are
Yeah,
able to give what we have learned. And
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
thank you for having me so much, Subi.